Blood hits marble. A camera flash. 20 million viewers watch live as a mother's fists slam into the surgeon who just saved her son's life. Dr. Nadia Vale, black, brilliant, and now bleeding on a Seoul hospital floor, doesn't know that the woman destroying her career is about to meet the one man in Asia who doesn't forgive. Like, comment with your city and stay until the end. Because what starts as a beating becomes a war that crosses 2 continents and burns an empire to ash. The heart monitor flatlined at 3:47 a.m., and Nadia's hands were already moving. Paddles, now. The nurse didn't ask questions. She slapped the defibrillator handles into Nadia's gloved palms while the rest of the trauma team scrambled around the table. The kid, 22, maybe 23, was gray under the surgical lights, his chest cracked open like a broken jewelry box. Nadia had been elbow deep in his thoracic cavity for the last 90 minutes, and she wasn't about to lose him now. Clear. The body jolted, the monitor hiccuped. Nothing. Again. Another shock. This time the line jumped, stuttered, and caught. A rhythm. Weak, but there. We got him, someone whispered. Nadia didn't celebrate. She never did. She just kept her eyes on the exposed heart, watching it beat against her fingertips like a trapped bird. The rupture she'd just stitched was holding. Barely. But holding. Close him up, she said. I want him on ECMO for the next 12 hours. No exceptions. She peeled off her gloves, dropped them in the bin, and walked out of the OR without looking back. The hallway was too bright. Her scrubs were soaked through. She could feel the ache spreading through her shoulders, down her spine, into her knees. She'd been on her feet for 16 hours. Maybe 18. She'd stopped counting somewhere around midnight. Her phone buzzed in her locker. She ignored it. Lucian would wait. He always did. The surgeon's lounge was empty except for a vending machine and a couch that smelled like old coffee. Nadia sank into it and closed her eyes. Just 5 minutes. That's all she needed. 5 minutes of silence before the next catastrophe rolled through the door. She didn't get 5 seconds. The door slammed open. Nadia's eyes snapped up just in time to see the woman charging at her. Designer coat, perfect hair, and a phone held high like a weapon. You, the woman hissed. You touched my son. Nadia stood, slowly. Her brain was still half in the OR, still running through the repairs she'd just completed. Ma'am, I'm Dr. Vale. I operated on... The first punch caught her in the jaw. Nadia's head snapped back. Pain exploded across her face. She staggered, hit the edge of the couch, and the woman was on her again. Fists, nails, screaming in Korean and English, and something else Nadia couldn't parse because her ears were ringing and her mouth was full of blood. You put your hands on him. You had no right. Nadia tried to cover her face, tried to push back, but the woman was wild, unhinged, and the phone was still recording. The light was still flashing. Nadia could see it even through her fingers, red and blinking, broadcasting live to whoever the hell was watching. Someone stop her! Nadia choked out, but the hallway was empty. The lounge was empty. There was no one. The woman grabbed Nadia's hair and slammed her head into the wall. Once, twice. Nadia's vision blurred. Her knees buckled. She tasted copper and felt something warm running down her neck. Serena, stop! A man's voice. Security, maybe. The woman, Serena, let go, and Nadia crumpled to the floor. Her hands were shaking. Her ears were ringing. She could hear Serena still screaming, still filming, still ranting about contamination and who gave you permission and how dare you. Nadia pressed her palm to her forehead. It came away red. Footsteps. Voices. Someone was talking to Serena in Korean, trying to calm her down. Nadia tried to stand, but her legs weren't working. She stayed on the floor, bleeding, humiliated, and completely alone. Serena's voice cut through the noise. You people think you can do whatever you want, touch whoever you want. Well, not my son, not ever. Nadia's brain finally caught up. You people. She looked up. Serena was still filming, still talking, still smiling. Everyone's going to see this, Serena said. Everyone's going to know what kind of doctor you really are. Then she turned and walked out. Nadia sat there for a long time. Maybe a minute, maybe 10. Blood dripped onto her scrubs. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She could hear people in the hallway now, orderlies, nurses, someone from admin. But no one came in. No one checked on her. No one asked if she was okay. She pulled out her phone. The screen was cracked, but it still worked. 37 missed calls. all from Lucian. She hit dial. He picked up on the first ring. Nadia. His voice was flat, controlled, the kind of calm that meant he already knew something was wrong. "I need you," she whispered. There was a pause. Then, "Where are you?" "Seoul General, the surgeon's lounge." "Don't move." The line went dead. Lucian Drake didn't do panic. He ended the call, pocketed his phone, and looked at the man across from him. They were in a private room at the back of a restaurant in Gangnam, the kind of place where people paid extra not to be noticed. The man, some mid-level politician looking to buy protection, was still talking, still pitching, still smiling. Lucian stood. "We're done," he said. The man blinked. "But we haven't—" "I said we're done." Lucian walked out. His driver was waiting at the curb, engine already running. Lucian slid into the back seat and pulled out his phone again. "Seoul General," he said. "Now." The driver didn't ask questions. He just drove. Lucian opened his contacts and scrolled to a name he hadn't used in months. Park Ji-hoon, Chief of Security at Seoul General. Former intelligence, current opportunist. Lucian had dirt on him that could end his career in an afternoon. He sent a text. "I need surveillance footage from the surgeon's lounge. Last 30 minutes. Send it now." The reply came back in under a minute. "Done." Lucian opened the file. It was grainy, black and white, but clear enough. He watched Nadia get hit, watched her fall, watched the woman, expensive coat, designer bag, phone in hand, beat her while she was down. He watched the whole thing twice. Then he made another call. "It's me," he said. "I need a name. Korean woman, late 40s, at Seoul General right now. Her son just came out of cardiac surgery. Find her. Find everything." "How fast?" 10 minutes. He hung up and leaned back. His jaw was tight. His hands were steady. People who knew Lucian, really knew him, understood that this was the dangerous part. Not when he yelled. Not when he threatened. When he went quiet. The driver pulled up to the hospital. Lucian stepped out and walked through the main entrance like he owned it. No one stopped him. No one ever did. He found Nadia in the lounge, sitting on the floor with her back against the wall. Her face was bruised. Her scrubs were stained. There was blood in her hair. She looked up when he walked in. "Lucian." He knelt beside her. His hand went to her face, tilting her chin so he could see the damage. A split lip. Swelling around her left eye. A gash on her forehead that was still bleeding. "Who did this?" he asked quietly. "Serena Huang, the patient's mother." Lucian's expression didn't change. "Where is she now?" "I don't know. She left. She was filming the whole thing. Live streaming, I think." Lucian's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. A message from his contact, Serena Huang, 48. Married to Huang Tai-jin, real estate developer. Son Daniel Huang, 22. Emergency cardiac surgery tonight. She's in the VIP wing. Lucian pocketed the phone and stood. "Can you walk?" Nadia nodded. He helped her up. Her knees buckled for a second, but she steadied herself against him. "I'm taking you out of here," he said. "I can't leave. I have patients." "You're not staying in this building." "Lucian?" "Nadia." He turned to face her, and for the first time since he'd arrived, there was something sharp in his voice. "You're covered in blood. Your face is split open. And the woman who did this is 3 floors above us, probably telling everyone who'll listen that you attacked her. So no, you're not staying." Nadia opened her mouth, closed it, then nodded. Lucian led her out through a side exit, past security, past the nurse's station, past the admin desk where someone tried to stop them and thought better of it when Lucian looked at him. They got into the car. Lucian didn't say anything for the first 5 minutes. He just sat there, watching the city slide past the window, his mind already 3 moves ahead. "What are you going to do?" Nadia asked. "Fix it." "Lucian, I don't want you to—" "I'm not asking." She looked at him. Really looked. "You're angry." "No." He turned to face her. "I'm not angry. I'm done being patient." By the time they reached Lucian's penthouse, the video had 17 million views. Nadia sat on the edge of the couch, watching herself get beaten on a screen the size of a wall. The comments were rolling in faster than she could read them. Some in Korean, some in English. All of them brutal. She probably deserved it. Why was a black doctor touching a Korean patient? Serena Huang is a hero. This is what happens when you let foreigners into our hospitals. Nadia's hands were shaking again. She couldn't stop them. Lucian took the remote and turned off the screen. Stop reading. She's destroying me. She's trying to. Lucian, I saved her son's life. I was in that OR for 90 minutes. He was dying. I brought him back. I know. And she... Nadia's voice cracked. She pressed her palms to her eyes. She called me you people. On camera. To 20 million strangers. Lucian didn't say anything. He just sat down next to her and waited. I've been here for 3 years, Nadia said. 3 years. I learned the language. I respected the culture. I did everything right. And it doesn't matter. To her, I'm still just... Nadia. She looked at him. You're not going to fight this alone, he said. You understand me? Whatever happens next, you're not alone. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that Lucian Drake, the man who controlled half the underground in 2 countries, who made people disappear with a phone call, who never lost, could actually fix this. But she'd seen the comments, she'd seen the hate, and she knew how the world worked. What if you can't fix it? She whispered. Lucian's eyes were cold. Then I burn it down and start over. 3 hours later, Lucian was in his office, surrounded by screens. His team had pulled everything. Bank records, property deeds, travel logs, social media, phone records, security footage from the hospital going back 6 months. He had 5 people working in shifts and they'd barely scratched the surface. But they'd found enough. Serena Huang wasn't just a wealthy woman with a temper. She was connected. Her husband owned buildings across Seoul, Singapore, and Hong Kong. Her brother-in-law sat on the board of 3 hospitals. Her name appeared in charity galas, political fundraisers, and private donor lists. But there were holes, payments that didn't make sense, transfers to shell companies in the Caymans, emails referencing patient referrals and alternative care networks. Lucian leaned closer to the screen. One of his analysts, a young woman named Min Ji, who used to work for the National Intelligence Service, had flagged a series of transactions dating back 4 years. Small amounts. 50,000 here, 80,000 there, always to the same 3 accounts. What are these? Lucian asked. Minji pulled up a spreadsheet. Payments from families, low income mostly. All of them had sick kids. All of them were told they couldn't afford surgery at Seoul General. And someone offered them a discount, a private clinic, cash only, no insurance. Lucian's jaw tightened. Where's the clinic? It doesn't exist anymore. It shut down 2 years ago after a patient died on the table. But I found the registration. Guess who owned it? Lucian didn't need to guess. He already knew. Minji turned the screen. Serena Huang's name was right there at the top of the ownership documents. She was running a trafficking network, Lucian said quietly. Looks like it. Families who couldn't afford real hospitals were funneled into her clinic. Some of them got surgery. Most of them got scammed. A few of them died. How many? At least 30 families that I can confirm. Probably more. Lucian stood. He walked to the window and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, Serena Huang was probably sleeping. Probably smiling. Probably counting the views on her video. Not for long. He turned back to Minji. I want every family, every victim, every transaction. I want medical records, autopsy reports, police files. I want everything that ties her to that clinic, and I want it ready to move in 72 hours. We can do 48. Do 24. Minji nodded and got back to work. Lucian pulled out his phone and sent a message to his lawyer in Seoul. File a defamation suit against Serena Huang. Assault charges too. I want her deposed by end of week. Then he called his media contact, a journalist who owed him 3 favors and wasn't in a position to say no. I have a story for you, Lucian said. And when I give it to you, you're going to run it everywhere. Print, digital, broadcast. You understand? What's the story? A woman who beats doctors also runs death clinics for poor families. Sound good? There was a pause. Then, yeah, that sounds real good. Lucian hung up. He went back into the living room. Nadia was asleep on the couch, her face turned toward the cushions. There was a bandage on her forehead now. Lucian had cleaned the wound himself, stitched it closed with the kind of precision he usually reserved for interrogations. He sat down in the chair across from her and watched her breathe. She'd asked him what he was going to do. He was going to take Serena Huang apart, piece by piece, connection by connection, dollar by dollar. And when he was done, there wouldn't be anything left. Not her reputation, not her wealth, not her freedom, nothing. But first he was going to let her think she'd won. The next morning, Nadia woke up to her phone exploding. Messages, calls, emails, notifications, all of them bad. The hospital had placed her on administrative leave pending an investigation. The medical board was reviewing her license. 3 news outlets were asking for comment. Her surgical privileges had been suspended. And the video, Serena's video, was now at 43 million views. Nadia sat up. Her head was pounding. Her jaw ached. She felt like she'd been hit by a truck. Lucian walked in with coffee. "Don't read the comments." "Too late." He handed her the cup. "The hospital's trying to bury you. They think if they throw you under the bus, the story goes away." "So what do I do?" "Nothing." Nadia stared at him. "Nothing?" "You stay quiet. You stay here. You let me handle it." "Lucian, I can't just sit here while my career gets destroyed." "You're not sitting. You're waiting. There's a difference." "For what?" Lucian's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then smiled. It was a cold smile, the kind that didn't reach his eyes. "For her to make a mistake," he said. "No." Serena Huang made her mistake that afternoon. She gave an interview. It was on one of Korea's biggest talk shows, prime time, live audience, full production. She wore white. She cried on cue. She talked about her son, about the trauma, about the unqualified foreign doctor who had violated him. She didn't mention that Nadia had saved his life. She didn't mention that the surgery had been an emergency. She didn't mention that her son had signed the consent forms himself. She just cried. And the host nodded and the audience clapped. Lucian watched the whole thing from his office. When it was over, he made a call. "Minji, how close are we?" "Done. Everything's ready." "Send it." "To who?" "Everyone." The story broke at 11 p.m. It started with a single article on a mid-tier news site, Serena Huang's Secret, How a Socialite Built a Medical Trafficking Empire. Within an hour, it was everywhere. The evidence was airtight: financial records, victim testimonies, photos of the shuttered clinic, emails between Serena and her partners discussing inventory and margins, medical records showing botched surgeries, untrained staff, and at least 6 preventable deaths. And at the center of it all, Serena Huang. By midnight, her name was trending for all the wrong reasons. The same people who had defended her 12 hours ago were now calling for her arrest. The same news outlets that had platformed her were now running exposés. And Serena was silent. Nadia watched it unfold from Lucian's penthouse. She didn't say anything. She just sat there, staring at the screen, trying to process what she was seeing. "You did this," she said finally. Lucian didn't look up from his laptop. "I told you I'd fix it." "Lucian, this is..." She gestured at the screen. "This is insane. How did you even find all this?" "I have people. People who can dig up 4 years of financial records in 24 hours. Good people." Nadia shook her head. She should have been relieved. She should have been grateful, but all she felt was numb. "What happens now?" she asked. Lucian finally looked at her. "Now? Now she learns what happens when you come after someone I care about. She's going to lawyer up. She's going to fight." "Let her." "Lucian?" "Nadia." He closed his laptop and stood. "You saved her son. You did your job. And she tried to destroy you for it. So no, I'm not letting this go. And neither should you." Nadia looked at him. At the man who had crossed a city in the middle of the night just to make sure she was okay. The man who had stitched her face and held her while she cried and then turned around and dismantled an entire criminal network in under 48 hours. She didn't know whether to kiss him or be terrified of him. Maybe both. "Okay," she said quietly. Lucian nodded, then his phone rang. He answered, listened. His expression didn't change, but Nadia saw something flicker in his eyes. "When?" he asked. A pause. "Good. Keep her there." He hung up. "What was that?" Nadia asked. Lucian picked up his coat. "Serena just tried to leave the country." Airport security stopped her. Why? Because I told them to. Nadia blinked. You can do that? Lucian smiled. I can do a lot of things. He headed for the door. Nadia stood. Where are you going? To finish this. Lucian, wait. He stopped, turned. You coming? Nadia hesitated. Then she grabbed her jacket. Yeah, she said, I'm coming. The airport was chaos. Nadia followed Lucian through the VIP entrance, past security checkpoints that opened without question, past glass doors that slid apart like they'd been expecting him. No one asked for ID. No one stopped them. Lucian moved through the building like gravity bent around him, and Nadia was starting to understand why. They found Serena in a private holding room on the second floor. Through the window, Nadia could see her pacing, phone pressed to her ear, gesturing wildly at two airport officials who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. She doesn't know you're here yet, Lucian said. Good. He glanced at her. You don't have to go in. Yes, I do. Lucian studied her face for a moment, then nodded. He opened the door. Serena's head snapped up. Her eyes went straight to Nadia, and for just a second, one beautiful, perfect second, Nadia saw fear. Then it was gone, replaced by rage. You, Serena hissed. She switched to Korean, spitting words Nadia didn't need translated to understand. Then back to English. You did this. You ruined me. Nadia didn't move. I saved your son's life. You had no right to touch him. He was dying. You should have let him die. The room went silent. Even the airport officials looked uncomfortable. One of them cleared his throat. Mrs. Huang, perhaps we should— Get out, Lucian said quietly. The officials looked at each other, then at Lucian. Then they left. Serena's lawyer, a thin man in an expensive suit who'd been sitting in the corner, stood up. Now wait just a minute. You can't just— Lucian turned to him, didn't say a word, just looked. The lawyer sat back down. Serena threw her phone at the wall. It shattered. Do you know who I am? Do you have any idea what you've done? Yeah, Lucian said. I know exactly who you are. He pulled out his phone and set it on the table. A video started playing, security footage from a clinic Nadia didn't recognize. The timestamp said 3 years ago. A woman was being wheeled in on a gurney, her face twisted in pain. A man in scrubs, no hospital badge, no name tag, was talking to a younger woman who looked terrified. That's the Beck family, Lucian said. Their daughter needed a kidney transplant. They couldn't afford Seoul General. Someone told them about a clinic that could do it cheaper. Cash only. No questions. Serena's face had gone pale. The surgery failed, Lucian continued. She died 2 days later, sepsis. The clinic closed a week after that, and the Becks never saw a dime of their money again. He swiped to another video. Another family. Another surgery. Another death. This is the Han family. The Park family. The Choi family. He kept swiping, kept talking. 32 families in 4 years, 32 people who trusted you, and you bled them dry. That clinic had nothing to do with me, Serena said, but her voice cracked. Lucian set the phone down and slid a folder across the table. Ownership documents, bank transfers, emails between you and your partners discussing how to maximize profit margins on pediatric surgeries. You want me to keep going? Serena's lawyer leaned over and whispered something. She shook her head violently. You can't prove any of this, she said. I already did. It's on every news site in Korea. It'll be international by morning. Serena's hands were shaking. She looked at Nadia. This is your fault. You came here and— I came here to work, Nadia said. Her voice was calm, steady. I came here to save lives. And you came after me because I'm black, because I'm different, because you thought no one would care. That's not— You called me you people on camera to 20 million strangers, so don't pretend this is about anything else. Serena opened her mouth, closed it. Her eyes were wet now, but Nadia didn't feel sorry for her, not even a little. Lucian picked up his phone. You have 2 choices. You can cooperate, give us names, locations, every person involved in your network, and maybe the prosecutor goes easy on you. Or you can lawyer up, drag this out, and spend the next decade in court while I make sure every single victim knows exactly who to blame. You're threatening me. I'm giving you options. That's more than you gave any of them. Serena looked at her lawyer. He was staring at the folder like it might bite him. Mrs. Huang, he said slowly. I think you should consider. I'm not saying anything without immunity. Lucian smiled. It was the kind of smile that didn't belong on a human face. You think you're in a position to negotiate? I have connections. I have resources. You think you can just walk in here and… Lucian's phone rang. He answered without breaking eye contact with Serena. Talk to me. A pause. He listened. His expression didn't change. Good. Send it. He hung up and turned the phone toward Serena. Your husband just resigned from his company. Your brother-in-law just stepped down from the hospital board. And your assets, all of them, are frozen pending investigation. Serena lunged across the table. Lucian caught her wrist mid-swing and held it there, perfectly still, until she stopped fighting. You're done, he said quietly. The only question now is whether you go down alone or take everyone with you. He let go. Serena stumbled back into her chair, breathing hard. Nadia watched the whole thing and felt nothing, no satisfaction, no relief, just exhaustion. We're leaving, Lucian said. He took Nadia's hand and walked toward the door. Wait. Serena's voice was small now, broken. What about my son? Nadia stopped, turned. What about him? She asked. Will he be okay? Nadia thought about lying, thought about twisting the knife, but she didn't. He'll live, she said. No thanks to you. Then she walked out. They didn't talk on the drive back. Lucian had his phone out, reading through reports, sending messages, orchestrating whatever came next. Nadia stared out the window and tried to process what had just happened. She'd stood in a room with the woman who'd beaten her, the woman who'd tried to destroy her career, the woman who'd called her you people on live television. And she hadn't yelled, hadn't cried, hadn't broken. She wasn't sure if that made her strong or just numb. You okay? Lucian asked. Nadia didn't answer right away. She was still seeing Serena's face, still hearing her voice. You should have let him die. No, she said finally. I'm not okay. Lucian put his phone down. You want to talk about it? Not really. He nodded and went back to his messages. That was the thing about Lucian. He didn't push. He didn't pry. He just waited until you were ready. Nadia wasn't ready yet. When they got back to the penthouse, Lucian disappeared into his office. Nadia went to the bedroom, peeled off her clothes, and stood under the shower until the water ran cold. Her face still ached. Her ribs were bruised. She looked like she'd been in a car accident. She got dressed and went to find Lucian. He was at his desk, surrounded by screens, his jacket off and his sleeves rolled up. There was a whiskey glass next to his laptop, half empty. Minji just sent over the final list, he said without looking up. 47 families. We're working on contacting all of them. Why? Because they deserve to know what happened, and because we're going to need them. For what? Lucian finally looked at her. For court. Nadia sat down. You're really going to take this all the way? Did you think I wouldn't? I don't know. I guess I thought… She stopped. I don't know what I thought. Lucian leaned back in his chair. You thought I'd make it go away quietly, pay someone off, bury it. Maybe. That's not how I work. I'm starting to see that. He took a sip of whiskey. You still have a problem with it? Nadia thought about that. About Serena's face when Lucian had laid out the evidence. About the families who'd lost children because of her greed. About the fact that none of this would have come to light if Serena hadn't decided to beat a black woman on camera. No, Nadia said. I don't have a problem with it. Lucien nodded. Good, because it's about to get worse. He wasn't lying. By morning, the story had gone international. CNN picked it up. BBC ran a segment. Al Jazeera interviewed one of the victims' families. The hashtag Justice for Nadia was trending in 14 countries, and Serena Huang was in custody. Nadia watched the arrest on the news. Serena in handcuffs, being led out of her house by police. Cameras everywhere, reporters shouting questions, her lawyer trying to shield her face. It should have felt like justice. Instead, it just felt heavy. Nadia's phone rang. She didn't recognize the number, but she answered anyway. Dr. Vale? Yes. This is Christine Okoye. I'm a reporter with the International Medical Journal. I was hoping I could ask you a few questions about… Nadia hung up. The phone rang again. Different number. She let it go to voicemail. Then another call, and another. She turned the phone off and set it face down on the counter. Lucian walked in with coffee. Press? Yeah, they're going to keep calling. I know. You should talk to them. Nadia looked at him. Why? Because right now, you're a victim. If you stay silent, that's all you'll ever be. And if I talk, then you control the narrative. Nadia took the coffee. It was too hot, but she drank it anyway. I'm not good at this. The cameras, the interviews, that's not who I am. You're a surgeon. You cut people open and fix their hearts. You think that's easier than talking to a reporter? Yes. Actually, I do. Lucian almost smiled. Fair enough. They sat in silence for a while. Outside, the city was waking up. Traffic, construction, normal people doing normal things. Nadia wondered what that felt like. Lucian, she said, how did you find all that evidence so fast? I told you, I have people. That's not an answer. He looked at her. You really want to know? Yeah, I do. Lucian set down his cup. I've been watching Serena Huang for 2 years. Nadia blinked. What? Not her specifically, her network. There have been rumors about illegal clinics in Seoul for a while, people getting scammed, surgeries going wrong. I had someone looking into it. Why? Because that's what I do. I find the people who prey on the vulnerable and I shut them down. You're a crime boss, Lucian, not a vigilante. I can be both. Nadia shook her head. You're telling me this was already in motion before she attacked me? The investigation was. The evidence wasn't. I accelerated the timeline. By 2 years? By however long it took. Nadia stared at him. You're insane. Probably. And you did all of this. Found 47 families, traced millions of dollars, pulled security footage from a clinic that doesn't exist anymore in less than 48 hours? 36, actually. Nadia laughed. She couldn't help it. It was either laugh or scream. Who are you? Lucian didn't answer. He just looked at her with those cold, unreadable eyes. And Nadia realized she didn't actually know. She knew he ran things. She knew people were afraid of him. She knew he could make problems disappear. But she didn't know how. And maybe she didn't want to. I need air, she said. She grabbed her jacket and headed for the door. Lucian didn't stop her. Nadia walked for hours. She didn't have a destination. She just moved. Through the streets, past the markets, along the river. No one recognized her. No one cared. She was just another face in a city of 10 million. She ended up at a park. There was a bench under a tree, and she sat down. Her phone was still off. She had no idea what time it was. A woman sat down next to her, late 50s maybe. Tired eyes, a canvas bag full of groceries. You look like you've had a long day, the woman said in accented English. Nadia nodded. You could say that. Me too. My son's in the hospital, heart surgery. Nadia's chest tightened. Is he okay? He will be. The doctor says he'll be fine. The woman smiled. She saved his life. A black woman. Can you imagine? In Korea. Nadia's throat closed up. She didn't trust herself to speak. The woman pulled out her phone and showed Nadia a picture. A young man, maybe 25, lying in a hospital bed. Smiling. Alive. She didn't have to help us, the woman said. We couldn't afford the surgery, but she did it anyway. She said every life matters. Nadia's eyes were burning. She sounds like a good doctor. She is, the best. The woman stood, gathered her bag, and walked away. Nadia sat there for a long time. Then she pulled out her phone and turned it back on. 73 missed calls, twice as many messages. She scrolled through them until she found one from a number she didn't recognize. The message was short. Dr. Vale, my name is Grace Bake. My daughter died because of Serena Huang. I saw the news. Thank you for exposing her. If you ever need anything, please reach out. You gave us the truth. That's more than anyone else ever did. Nadia read it 3 times. Then she stood up and walked back to the penthouse. What? Lucian was still in his office when she got back. He looked up when she walked in. You were right, Nadia said. About what? I need to talk. To the press. To anyone who'll listen. Lucian nodded. I'll set it up. And I need you to do something else. What? I need you to find every single person Serena hurt, not just the families, everyone. The nurses who worked at that clinic, the people who helped her cover it up, the hospitals that looked the other way. All of them. Lucian's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. That's a long list. I don't care. I want every name, every connection, every dollar. I want the whole system exposed. That's going to take time. Then we take time. Lucian stood and walked over to her. You understand what you're asking for? This isn't just Serena anymore. This is institutions, corporations, people with power. Good. Let them be scared. Lucian studied her face. Then he smiled. It was a real smile this time. Okay. Okay. Yeah, okay. He pulled out his phone. I'll make some calls. The first interview went live 2 days later. Nadia sat across from a journalist named Sarah Park, sharp, professional, and one of the few reporters in Seoul who'd been covering medical trafficking for years. The cameras were rolling, the lights were too bright, Nadia's hands were shaking. Dr. Vale, Sarah said, thank you for agreeing to speak with us. Thank you for having me. Let's start with the attack. Can you walk us through what happened that night? Nadia took a breath. Then she told the story. All of it. The surgery, the assault, the video, the silence. And when you saw the footage of yourself being beaten, Sarah asked, what went through your mind? Honestly, I thought my career was over. I thought no one would believe me. I thought I'd be blamed for something I didn't do. But you weren't. No, because someone found the truth. Are you referring to Lucian Drake? Nadia hesitated. Lucian had told her not to mention him by name. Keep the focus on the victims, he'd said, not on me. But she was done hiding. Yes, Nadia said. Lucian is my fiancé, and when he found out what happened, he didn't just comfort me. He went looking for answers, and what he found, what we found, was so much bigger than one attack. Sarah leaned forward. You're talking about the trafficking network. I'm talking about a system that preys on desperate families, that charges them everything they have and then fails them, that lets people die because profit matters more than lives. And Serena Huang was at the center of that system. She was, but she wasn't alone. Sarah's eyes sharpened. Are you saying there are others involved? I'm saying this doesn't end with Serena. It ends when every hospital, every clinic, every person who enabled this is held accountable. The interview went viral within an hour. By the next morning, 3 hospitals had launched internal investigations. 2 government officials had resigned, and Serena Huang's legal team had filed a motion to dismiss all charges. Lucian called Nadia into his office. You just declared war. Good. You understand what that means? They're going to come after you. Hard. Let them. Lucian looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. All right. Then we hit back harder. Over the next 3 weeks, Lucian's team worked around the clock. They tracked down former employees of the clinic. They found financial records buried in offshore accounts. They interviewed families who'd been too scared to speak out before. And slowly, piece by piece, they built a case that went far beyond Serena Huang. There were hospital administrators who'd taken kickbacks, insurance executives who'd denied coverage to push patients toward the clinic, doctors who'd performed surgeries they weren't qualified for, politicians who'd looked the other way. It was bigger than Nadia had imagined, and uglier. One night, she was sitting in Lucian's office reading through a victim's testimony when she started crying. She didn't mean to. It just happened. Lucian looked up from his laptop. You need to stop. I can't. Nadia, this family lost their son because a doctor botched his surgery. He was 9 years old, 9, and the clinic told them it was their fault for waiting too long to bring him in. Lucian closed his laptop. He walked over and took the file out of her hands. You can't save all of them. I know. So stop trying to carry all of it. Nadia wiped her eyes. How do you do this? How do you look at all this pain and not... I compartmentalize. That's not healthy. Neither is drowning. Nadia looked at him, really looked. For the first time, she saw the cracks, the exhaustion, the weight he carried that he never talked about. Lucian, she said quietly, why do you do this? Why do you care? He didn't answer right away. He just stood there, staring at the wall, My sister died when I was 17, he said finally. Cancer. We couldn't afford the treatment. By the time we found a clinic that would take us, it was too late. Nadia's breath caught. The clinic lied to us, Lucian continued, told us they could save her, took every dollar we had, and then she died anyway. Alone. In pain. Because they cared more about the money than her life. Lucian. So yeah, I care. Because I know what it's like to watch someone you love die because the system failed them. And I'm not letting it happen to anyone else if I can stop it. Nadia reached for his hand. He let her take it. I'm sorry, she said. Don't be, just help me finish this. She nodded. I will. The trial date was set for 6 weeks out. In the meantime, Serena's lawyers tried everything. They filed motions, they challenged evidence, they attacked Nadia's credibility. They even tried to argue that the clinic deaths were unrelated to Serena's actions. None of it worked. Lucian had built the case too well. Every document was authenticated, every witness was credible, every piece of evidence was airtight, and the public was watching. Protests started outside Seoul General. Families of the victims held vigils. Medical students walked out of lectures demanding reform. The pressure was building. And then, 3 days before the trial, Serena's son requested to meet with Nadia. She almost said no. But Lucian convinced her. He deserves to know the truth, Lucian said, and you deserve to hear what he has to say. So Nadia went. They met in a private room at the hospital. Daniel Huang was sitting up in bed, still recovering, but alive. When Nadia walked in, he looked at her like he was seeing a ghost. Dr. Vale, he said. Daniel. His voice cracked. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Yes, I do. He looked down at his hands. My mother told me you attacked her. She told me you were dangerous, that you shouldn't have operated on me. Nadia didn't respond. But I saw the footage, Daniel continued. Not the one she posted, the real one. From the security cameras, I saw what she did to you. Nadia's chest tightened. And then I found out about the clinic, about the families, about everything. Daniel's eyes were wet now. I didn't know, I swear. I didn't know. I believe you. She's my mother, and she's a monster. How do I... He stopped. How do I live with that? Nadia sat down. I don't know. But you start by telling the truth. Daniel nodded. I'm testifying. Against her. My lawyers tried to talk me out of it, but I don't care. She needs to be stopped. That's not going to be easy. I know, but you saved my life. The least I can do is help you save others. Nadia looked at this kid, this 22-year-old who'd just had his entire world shattered, and saw something she hadn't expected. Courage. Thank you, she said. Daniel wiped his eyes. No, thank you. That night, Nadia and Lucian sat on the balcony, looking out at the city. Daniel's testifying, Nadia said. I heard. He's going to destroy his own mother on the stand. Good. Nadia turned to him. You really think we're going to win this? I don't think. I know. How can you be so sure? Lucian looked at her. Because we have the truth. And in the end, that's the only thing that matters. Nadia wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that justice was real, that the system worked, that good people won. But she'd seen too much to be that naive. What if it's not enough? She asked. Lucian took her hand. Then we make it enough. And for the first time in weeks, Nadia felt something other than fear. She felt hope. The courthouse was a fortress. Nadia stood at the base of the steps, staring up at the concrete and glass structure that looked more like a prison than a place of justice. News vans lined the street, protesters held signs, cameras tracked her every move. Lucian's hand was steady on her lower back. You ready? No? Good. Neither is she. They climbed the steps together. Security waved them through without checking bags. The DA's office had arranged a private entrance, but Lucian had refused. He wanted Serena to see them walk in, wanted her to know they weren't hiding. Inside, the building smelled like old paper and floor polish. Their lawyer, a woman named Jennifer Cho, who'd flown in from New York specifically for this case, was waiting in the hallway outside courtroom 6. Morning, Jennifer said. She didn't smile. She never smiled. We're up in 20 minutes. Serena's team just filed another motion to delay. They're stalling, Lucian said. Of course they are. Judge already denied it. Good. Jennifer turned to Nadia. You're not testifying today. Opening statements only, but you need to be visible. The jury needs to see your face. Understand? Nadia nodded. Her stomach was churning. She'd barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Serena's fists coming at her. What about Daniel? Nadia asked. He testifies tomorrow, along with 3 of the victim families. And the evidence? It's airtight. Financial records, medical files, security footage, emails. We've got everything. Jennifer paused. Lucian made sure of that. Nadia glanced at him. He was reading something on his phone, face blank, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. What about Serena's defense? Nadia asked. Jennifer's expression hardened. They're going to paint her as a grieving mother who made bad business decisions. They're going to say the clinic was mismanaged, not criminal. And they're going to argue that she looked at Nadia, that you escalated the situation by refusing to follow hospital protocol. That's bullshit. I know, but it's what they've got. The courtroom doors opened. A bailiff stepped out. We're ready. Nadia's heart slammed against her ribs. Lucian's hand found hers. You've got this, he said quietly. She wasn't sure she believed him, but she walked in anyway. The courtroom was packed, every seat filled. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but sketch artists sat in the front row, pencils already moving. Nadia spotted a few familiar faces, reporters from the networks that had interviewed her, activists who'd been protesting outside Seoul General, and in the back, partially hidden behind a column, Grace Back, the woman whose daughter had died because of Serena's clinic. Their eyes met. Grace nodded once. Nadia nodded back. Then she saw Serena. The woman sat at the defense table, flanked by 3 lawyers in matching suits. She wore white again. Pearls. Hair pulled back. She looked smaller than Nadia remembered. Older. But her eyes were the same, cold and sharp and full of hate. Serena looked directly at Nadia and smiled. Nadia's hands clenched into fists. Lucian's grip tightened on her arm. Don't, he whispered. I'm not doing anything. Good. Keep it that way. The judge entered. Everyone stood. The bailiff announced the case. The jury filed in. 12 people who would decide whether Serena Huang spent the rest of her life in prison or walked free. Nadia studied their faces, tried to read them, failed. The judge, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and no patience for theatrics, banged her gavel once. Opening statements, she said. Prosecution, you're up. Jennifer stood. She didn't hurry, didn't rush. She walked to the center of the room, looked at the jury, and waited until she had their complete attention. 3 years ago, Jennifer began, a woman named Min Seo Baek walked into a clinic on the south side of Seoul. She was 19 years old. She needed a kidney transplant. Her family had been saving for years, but they couldn't afford the surgery at a legitimate hospital. So when someone told them about a clinic that could do it cheaper, cash only, no insurance, they thought it was an answer to their prayers. Jennifer paused. Let the silence hang. Min Seo died 2 days after the surgery, sepsis. The clinic closed a week later. Her family never got their money back. And the woman who owned that clinic, who profited from Min Seo's death, is sitting right there. She pointed at Serena. Serena Huang didn't just run one illegal clinic. She ran a network. For 4 years, she targeted vulnerable families. Families who were desperate. Families who would pay anything to save their children. And she bled them dry. 32 families. 32 victims. Some survived, some didn't. But all of them were exploited by a woman who saw human suffering as a business opportunity. Jennifer walked closer to the jury box. The defense is going to tell you this was a misunderstanding, that Mrs. Huang made bad investments, that she didn't know what was happening in her own clinics. But the evidence will show you otherwise. Bank records, emails, testimonies from survivors, and most importantly, the truth from her own son, who will testify that his mother knew exactly what she was doing. One of Serena's lawyers shot to his feet. Objection. Counsel is testifying. Sustained, the judge said. Ms. Cho, stick to what you can prove. Jennifer didn't miss a beat. Your Honor, I intend to prove every word. She turned back to the jury. This case is about more than one woman's crimes. It's about a system that failed, hospitals that looked the other way, officials who took bribes, doctors who performed surgeries they weren't qualified for, and at the center of it all, Serena Huang, who believed she was untouchable, who believed she could get away with it, who believed that no one would care. Jennifer glanced at Nadia. But someone did care. Dr. Nadia Vale cared. And when Mrs. Huang tried to silence her, when she attacked her, beat her, and tried to destroy her career, she didn't realize she was exposing herself. Because Dr. Vale didn't stay silent. She fought back. And now, all of us are here to make sure Serena Huang finally faces justice. Jennifer walked back to her seat. The courtroom was dead quiet. The judge looked at the defense table. Your opening statement. Serena's lead attorney, a man named David Kang, who'd built his career defending white-collar criminals, stood. He was smooth, polished, the kind of lawyer who made juries forget they were listening to a predator. Ladies and gentlemen, David said, this case is a tragedy. There's no question about that. Families lost loved ones. People suffered, but suffering doesn't equal guilt. And the prosecution wants you to believe that my client, a mother, a philanthropist, a woman who has spent her life giving back to her community, is responsible for all of it. He shook his head. Serena Huang made investments, like many people do. She trusted the wrong partners. She relied on professionals who lied to her. And when things went wrong, she was devastated. But being a bad judge of character is not a crime. Nadia's jaw clenched. Lucian's hand found hers under the table. The prosecution will show you documents, David continued. Financial records, emails, and they'll tell you these prove intent. But what they won't tell you is that Mrs. Huang was never directly involved in the day-to-day operations of those clinics. She was a silent investor, nothing more. He walked toward the jury, hands open, expression earnest. And as for the incident with Dr. Vale, my client deeply regrets what happened. She was emotional. Her son had just come out of surgery. She acted out of fear, not malice, and she has already apologized publicly for her actions. Bullshit, Nadia whispered. Lucian squeezed her hand. Let him talk. He's digging his own grave. David gestured towards Serena. Look at her. Does she look like a criminal mastermind? Or does she look like a mother who made mistakes and is now being used as a scapegoat for a broken system? He let the question hang. The real criminals here are the people who ran those clinics, the doctors who performed illegal surgeries, the administrators who covered it up. And the prosecution knows that. But those people aren't in this courtroom. My client is, because she's an easy target. David walked back to his seat. Don't let the prosecution manipulate your emotions. Look at the facts. And when you do, you'll see that Serena Huang is not the monster they're trying to make her out to be. He sat down. Serena reached over and touched his arm, mouthing, "Thank you." Nadia felt sick. The judge called a recess. The jury filed out. Nadia stood on shaking legs and followed Jennifer into the hallway. He's good, Nadia said. He's a liar, Jennifer replied. But yeah, he's good. What if the jury believes him? They won't, not after tomorrow. You sound confident. Jennifer looked at her. I am. Because we have the truth, and the truth always wins. Eventually. Nadia wanted to believe that, but she'd seen too many cases where the truth didn't matter, where money and power won instead. Lucian appeared at her side. You need to eat something. I'm not hungry. You haven't eaten since yesterday. You're going to pass out. I'm fine. Lucian didn't argue. He just steered her toward a bench and sat her down. Then he pulled a granola bar out of his jacket and handed it to her. Eat. Nadia unwrapped it, took a bite. It tasted like cardboard. How are you so calm? She asked. I'm not. You look calm. That's the point. Nadia almost smiled. Almost. A reporter spotted them and started walking over. Lucian stood, blocking her path. Not now, he said. The reporter stopped. Mr. Drake, just one question. I said not now. The woman looked like she wanted to argue. Then she saw Lucian's face and thought better of it. Nadia finished the granola bar. Her hands were still shaking. What happens if we lose? She asked quietly. Lucian sat back down. We won't. But what if we do? He looked at her. Really looked. Then we appeal, and we keep fighting until we win. And if that doesn't work? Lucian's expression darkened. Then I handle it my way. Nadia knew what that meant. And part of her, a part she didn't want to acknowledge, was okay with it. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, she said. Yeah, let's hope. Shunned. The trial resumed an hour later. The prosecution called its first witness, a forensic accountant named Robert Chen, who'd spent 3 weeks tracing Serena's financial records. He walked the jury through offshore accounts, shell companies, and wire transfers that painted a clear picture. Serena hadn't just invested in the clinics. She'd controlled them. These transactions, Robert said, pointing to a spreadsheet on the screen, show payments directly from patient families to accounts owned by Mrs. Huang. Not the clinics, not the doctors, her. David Kang stood. Objection, speculation. Overruled, the judge said. Continue, Mr. Chen. Robert pulled up another document. This email, dated March 2021, is from Mrs. Huang to her business partner. It says, and I quote, "We need to increase patient volume by 20% this quarter. Cut costs where necessary." And what does that tell you? Jennifer asked. It tells me she was directly involved in operational decisions, including decisions that affected patient care. The jury was taking notes. Nadia watched their faces. Some looked horrified, others skeptical. David cross-examined. He tried to poke holes in the timeline, tried to argue that the emails were taken out of context. But Robert held firm. When the accountant finally stepped down, Jennifer called her next witness, a former nurse who'd worked at one of the clinics. Her name was Ji-Won Park. She was in her 30s, thin, with dark circles under her eyes. She looked terrified. Jennifer approached gently. "Miss Park, can you tell the jury where you worked from 2020 to 2022? At the Riverside Clinic, in Seoul. And who owned that clinic?" Ji-Won glanced at Serena, then looked away. Serena Huang. "Did you ever meet Mrs. Huang?" "Yes, she came to the clinic every month." "What did she do during those visits?" "She reviewed patient numbers, revenue. She wanted to know how many surgeries we'd done and how much we'd made." "Did she ever express concern about patient safety?" Ji-Won's voice dropped. "No." "What about the doctors? Were they qualified?" "Some of them, but most—" Ji-Won's hands were shaking. "Most of them had lost their licenses, or never had them in the first place." The courtroom erupted. The judge banged her gavel. "Order!" Jennifer waited for silence. "Did Mrs. Huang know this?" "Yes, she knew. She hired them because they were cheap." David was on his feet again. "Objection! Hearsay!" "Your Honor, this witness has direct knowledge. I'll allow it, but tread carefully, Ms. Cho." Jennifer nodded. "Miss Park, did you ever see a patient die at the clinic?" Ji-Won's eyes filled with tears. "Yes." "How many?" "At least 6. That I know of." "And what happened to their bodies?" Ji-Won's voice broke. "We were told to dispose of them quietly. No autopsies, no investigations." Nadia felt bile rise in her throat. Lucian's hand was a vice on her knee. "And did Mrs. Huang know about these deaths?" Jennifer asked. "She had to. She reviewed everything." David's cross-examination was brutal. He attacked Ji-Won's credibility, suggested she was lying to avoid prosecution herself, made her cry on the stand. But the damage was done. By the time court adjourned for the day, the jury looked shaken. Nadia walked out of the courthouse surrounded by security. Protesters chanted her name. Reporters shouted questions. Lucian shielded her from the cameras until they reached the car. Inside, Nadia finally let herself breathe. "That was awful," she said. "That was necessary." "She's going to get crucified tomorrow when Daniel testifies." Lucian pulled out his phone. "Good." Nadia leaned back against the seat and closed her eyes. She could still see Ji-Won's face, still hear her voice breaking. At least 6. "How many more are there?" Nadia asked. "How many people did she kill?" "We're still finding out." "What if we never know the real number?" Lucian looked at her. "Then we make sure the ones we do know about matter." That night, Nadia couldn't sleep. She sat on the balcony, wrapped in a blanket, watching the city lights. Lucian found her there around 3 in the morning. "You should be in bed," he said. "Can't sleep." He sat down next to her. "What's going on?" Nadia didn't answer right away. She was thinking about Ji-Won, about the families, about the children who died because Serena Huang cared more about money than lives. What if this doesn't change anything? She said finally. What if we win? She goes to prison and nothing actually gets better? It will. How do you know? Lucian was quiet for a moment. Because you're going to make sure it does. Nadia looked at him. What are you talking about? After this is over, you're not going back to Seoul General. You're going to build something better. Lucian, I'm serious. You're one of the best surgeons in the world. You shouldn't be working in a system that doesn't value you. And what am I supposed to do instead? Open my own hospital? Why not? Nadia laughed. It came out bitter. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious in my life. She shook her head. That's insane. Do you have any idea how much that would cost? How much work? I have the money. You have the vision. We make it happen. Nadia stared at him. You're really not joking. No. Lucian, I can't just pull... Why not? Give me one good reason. Nadia opened her mouth, closed it. She had 12 reasons, 100. But suddenly, none of them seemed to matter. I'll think about it, she said finally. Lucian smiled. That's all I'm asking. The next morning, Daniel Huang took the stand. The courtroom was even more packed than before. Security had to turn people away at the door. Daniel looked pale, fragile, but when he raised his hand to swear in, his voice was steady. Jennifer approached him carefully. Mr. Huang, how are you feeling? Better, thanks to Dr. Vale. A few people in the gallery whispered. The judge shot them a look. Can you tell the jury what happened the night you were admitted to Seoul General? Jennifer asked. Daniel took a breath. I collapsed at a club. My friends called an ambulance. By the time I got to the hospital, they said I was dying. Heart failure. And who performed your surgery? Dr. Vale. Did you consent to the surgery? Yes. I signed the forms myself. Jennifer pulled up a document on the screen. Is this your signature? Daniel nodded. Yes. So to be clear, Dr. Vale had your explicit permission to operate on you. Yes. Jennifer let that sink in. Then she asked, what happened when you woke up after surgery? Daniel's jaw tightened. My mother was there. She was angry. She kept saying Dr. Vale had no right to touch me, that she should have waited for a Korean doctor. Did she say anything else? She said, Daniel's voice cracked. She said Dr. Vale was one of those people, that I was contaminated now. Serena's face was stone. How did that make you feel? Jennifer asked. Disgusted, ashamed. Dr. Vale saved my life, and my mother... He stopped. My mother tried to destroy her for it. Jennifer walked back to her table, picked up a folder. Mr. Huang, when did you first learn about your mother's business dealings? After the arrest, my lawyers showed me the evidence. And what did you think? Daniel looked directly at Serena. I thought she was a monster. The courtroom exploded. The judge banged her gavel repeatedly. Order! I will clear this room. When the noise died down, Jennifer continued. Did your mother ever discuss her investments with you? Sometimes. She talked about real estate, clinics. She said she was helping people who couldn't afford traditional health care. Did you believe her? I wanted to, but after I saw the evidence, the emails, the payments, the deaths, I realized she'd been lying the whole time. David Kang stood for cross-examination. Mr. Huang, isn't it true that you and your mother have had a strained relationship for years? Yes. And isn't it possible that you're testifying against her now out of spite? Daniel's eyes hardened. No, I'm testifying because she killed people, and someone needs to stop her. David tried a few more angles, tried to shake Daniel's story, but the kid held firm. When he finally stepped down, he walked past Serena without looking at her. Nadia watched him leave and felt something shift in her chest. This kid, this 22-year-old who just destroyed his own mother on the stand, had more courage than most people twice his age. The prosecution called 3 more witnesses that day, victim families. Each one told the same story, desperation, false hope, and devastating loss. By the time court adjourned, Serena's lawyers looked rattled. Nadia and Lucian left through the back entrance. Protesters were still outside, but the mood had shifted. People were chanting for justice now, for Serena to be convicted. In the car, Nadia's phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. "Thank you for saving my life. I'm sorry it took me this long to do the right thing." She showed it to Lucian. "He's a good kid," Lucian said. "Yeah, he is. Think you'll be okay?" Nadia thought about that, about what it meant to testify against your own mother, to stand up in front of the world and call her a monster. "I don't know," she said, "but I hope so." The trial lasted another week. The defense put up a fight. They called character witnesses, business partners who swore Serena was a victim of circumstance, doctors who claimed the clinics had been properly run, but the prosecution had too much evidence, too many victims, too much truth. On the final day, Jennifer gave her closing argument. "Serena Huang is not a victim," she said. "She's a predator. She saw vulnerable families and she exploited them. She saw dying children and she saw profit. And when someone threatened to expose her, when Dr. Vale saved her own son and became a threat, she tried to destroy her." Jennifer walked to the jury box. But Dr. Vale didn't break. She fought back. And because she did, all of you now know the truth. 32 families, at least 6 deaths, millions of dollars stolen, and one woman sitting at that table who thought she could get away with it. She pointed at Serena. "Don't let her." The jury deliberated for 2 days. Nadia barely left the penthouse. She paced. She couldn't eat, couldn't focus. Lucian tried to distract her, but nothing worked. On the second day at 4:47 p.m., the call came. The jury had reached a verdict. Nadia and Lucian raced to the courthouse. The hallways were chaos. Reporters, protesters, security everywhere. Inside the courtroom, Serena looked smaller than ever. Her lawyers whispered to her, but she didn't seem to hear them. The jury filed in. Nadia tried to read their faces. Failed. The judge looked at the foreperson. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" "We have, Your Honor. On the charge of medical fraud in the first degree, how do you find the defendant?" "Guilty." The courtroom erupted. Nadia's knees buckled. Lucian caught her. "On the charge of conspiracy to commit fraud?" "Guilty." "On the charge of involuntary manslaughter?" "Guilty." 6 charges, 6 guilty verdicts. Serena's face crumpled. Her lawyers surrounded her, but she pushed them away. She turned and looked directly at Nadia. For a moment, their eyes locked. Then Serena was led away in handcuffs. Nadia stood there, shaking, as the courtroom slowly emptied. Lucian's arms were around her, but she barely felt them. It was over. She'd won. They'd won. But it didn't feel like victory. It just felt like the bleeding had finally stopped. Outside the courthouse, the crowd had grown to hundreds, maybe thousands. Nadia couldn't tell anymore. The noise was deafening. Cheers, chants, camera shutters clicking like machine guns. Someone tried to push a microphone in her face. Lucian's security team formed a wall around them. "Dr. Vale, how does it feel to finally get justice? Will you be returning to Seoul General? What's next for you and Mr. Drake?" Nadia kept her head down and let Lucian guide her to the car. Inside, the world finally went quiet. She pressed her forehead against the cool glass and tried to breathe. "You okay?" Lucian asked. "I don't know." He didn't push, just sat there while the driver navigated through the crowd. Nadia watched the faces blur past, some celebrating, some crying, some just staring. She wondered how many of them actually cared about the victims. How many just wanted to see a rich woman fall? Her phone buzzed, then again and again. Messages pouring in from people she hadn't talked to in years, colleagues, medical school classmates, her parents. She turned the phone off and shoved it in her bag. "I need a drink," she said. Lucian made a call. 20 minutes later, they were in a private room at a restaurant Nadia had never heard of. No windows, no cameras, just them and a bottle of whiskey that probably cost more than her first car. Nadia poured herself a glass, drank it, poured another. "Easy," Lucian said. "Don't." "Nadia, I said don't." She set the glass down harder than she meant to. "I just spent 2 weeks watching families talk about their dead children. I watched a kid testify against his own mother. I watched a woman who tried to kill me get dragged out in handcuffs. So if I want to get drunk right now, I'm going to get drunk." Lucian raised his hands. "Okay." Nadia drained the second glass. The whiskey burned. She welcomed it. I thought I'd feel different, she said after a while. Different how? I don't know. Lighter, maybe, like something had been lifted. She turned the glass in her hands. But I just feel tired. That's normal. Is it? Because I don't feel normal. I feel... She stopped, tried to find the words. I feel like I'm standing in the middle of a crater, and everyone's congratulating me for surviving the explosion, but all I can see is the damage. Lucian leaned back in his chair. You want my honest opinion? Do I have a choice? You're allowed to feel like shit. You're allowed to be angry that it took this long. You're allowed to wish it had never happened in the first place. But don't let that turn into guilt. I'm not. You are. I can see it. You're already wondering if you could have done something differently, if you could have saved those families before Serena got to them, if you could have stopped this earlier. Nadia's throat tightened. Wouldn't you? Yeah, I would, but I'd also know it's bullshit. Lucian poured himself a glass. You didn't create that system. You didn't run those clinics. You didn't kill those kids. Serena did. And now she's paying for it. For how long? 25 years minimum. Probably longer. Nadia did the math. Serena was 48. She'd be in her 70s before she saw daylight again, if she lived that long. Good, Nadia said quietly. They sat in silence for a while, drinking, not talking, just existing in the same space. Finally, Lucian said, You know what happens now, right? What? Everyone's going to want a piece of you, the networks, the hospitals, the politicians. They're going to want you to be the face of reform. Nadia laughed. It came out harsh. I don't want to be anyone's face. I know, but you're going to be anyway. So what do I do? You decide what kind of face you want to be. Nadia looked at him. What does that mean? Lucian set down his glass. It means you can let them turn you into a symbol, put you on magazine covers, parade you around at galas, use your story to make themselves look good. Or you can take control of the narrative and build something real. You're talking about the hospital again. I'm talking about legacy. Nadia shook her head. I'm a surgeon, Lucien, not a CEO. I don't know the first thing about running a hospital. So you learn. Or you hire people who do. With what money? Mine. I'm not taking your money. Why not? Because... Nadia stopped, tried to articulate what she was feeling. Because I need to do this on my own, if I do it at all. Lucian studied her face. You're serious? Yeah. You realize how stubborn that is, right? Coming from you, that's rich. He almost smiled. Fair enough. Nadia poured herself another glass, smaller this time. What if I'm not ready for this? What if I try to build something and it all falls apart? Then you rebuild. Just like that? Just like that. Nadia wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that failure wasn't the end, that she could try and fail and try again. But she'd spent her whole career being perfect, being the best, being the one who didn't make mistakes. I don't know if I can do that, she admitted. Lucian reached across the table and took her hand. Then we'll figure it out together. Nadia looked at their hands. His fingers were scarred, rough, hands that had built empires and buried enemies, hands that had held her while she cried and stitched her wounds and never once let go. Okay, she said quietly. Okay? Yeah, okay. The next 3 weeks were a blur. Sentencing happened on a Tuesday. Serena got 30 years. Her lawyers filed an appeal immediately, but no one expected it to go anywhere. The evidence was too strong. The crimes too clear. Nadia didn't attend. She watched it on the news from Lucian's penthouse, a cup of coffee going cold in her hands. When the sentence was read, she felt nothing, just numbness. Daniel called her that night. Hey, he said. Hey, you saw? Yeah. There was a long pause. Then Daniel said, I don't know if I should be relieved or sad. You can be both. Is that what you are? Nadia thought about it. I don't know what I am anymore. Daniel laughed, but it sounded hollow. Yeah, me neither. They talked for a while, about recovery, about therapy, about what came next. Daniel was thinking about going back to school. Something in public health, maybe. something that mattered. That's good, Nadia said. The world needs more people who give a shit. I learned from the best. After they hung up, Nadia sat there staring at her phone, thinking about all the lives that had been changed by one woman's greed, all the futures that had been stolen, all the pain that could have been avoided. She thought about the hospital Lucian kept pushing her to build, about what it would take, about whether she was strong enough to carry it. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was Grace Beck. The message was short. Thank you. Minseo would be proud. Nadia read it 3 times. Then she got up, walked into Lucian's office, and said, I'm ready. He looked up from his laptop. Ready for what? To build something. To actually make a difference. To stop letting other people control the story. Lucian closed the laptop. You're serious. Dead serious. What changed? Nadia pulled out her phone and showed him Grace's message. This, all of this, if I don't do something with it, if I just go back to being a surgeon and pretend none of this happened, then what was it all for? Lucian stood and walked around the desk. All right, then let's do it. Just like that? Just like that. Nadia felt something stir in her chest, something that felt almost like hope. Where do we start? Lucian pulled out his phone and made a call. We start by finding the right people, Sue. The meeting started the next day. First up was an architect named Sarah Chen, who designed trauma centers in 3 countries. She sat across from Nadia and Lucian in a conference room, sketching ideas on a tablet while she talked. What you're describing isn't just a hospital, Sarah said. It's a statement. You want to create a space that actively rejects the inequalities in the current system. That means thinking about everything: location, accessibility, staffing, funding models. Can it be done? Nadia asked. Can it? Yes. Will it be easy? Absolutely not. Lucian leaned forward. What's the biggest challenge? Sarah didn't hesitate. Money. A facility like this, fully staffed, state-of-the-art equipment, programs for underserved populations, you're looking at a minimum of $300 million to get it off the ground. Probably more. Nadia's stomach dropped. $300 million, at least. And that's just construction and initial operations. Long-term sustainability is a whole other conversation. Lucian pulled out his phone and started typing. What if we had investors? People who believe in the mission? That helps. But you'd need a lot of them, and you'd need to make sure they don't have controlling interest. Otherwise, you're right back where you started, beholden to people who care more about profits than patients. Nadia rubbed her temples. This is insane. Most worthwhile things are, Sarah said. She turned her tablet toward them. But look, this is what it could be. The screen showed a rendering of a building, sleek, modern, but warm. Lots of glass, lots of light, open spaces, gardens. This is the main lobby, Sarah said, swiping to the next image. And these are the surgical suites, the patient rooms, the community clinic on the ground floor, free walk-ins, no questions asked. Nadia stared at the images. It was everything she'd ever wanted, everything she'd never thought possible. How long would it take to build, she asked. 2 years? Maybe 3? And staffing? That's your department. But if you're serious about this, you'll need to start recruiting now. The best doctors, the best nurses, people who share your vision. Nadia looked at Lucian. He was already typing notes. We're serious, Nadia said. Sarah smiled. Then let's make it happen. Over the next 2 months, Nadia met with dozens of people. Lawyers, investors, hospital administrators, medical directors. Some of them believed in the vision. Some of them thought she was naive. A few told her outright that it would never work. She kept going anyway. Lucian handled the business side, negotiations, contracts, funding structures. Nadia handled the medical side, protocols, staffing, patient care models. They worked 16-hour days, fell into bed exhausted. Woke up and did it again. Somewhere in the chaos, they picked a location. 2 locations, actually. One in Seoul, one in Las Vegas. Why Vegas? Nadia had asked when Lucian first suggested it. Because it's where I'm based, and because it's a city full of people who fall through the cracks. Addicts, sex workers, immigrants, people who need access to care but can't afford it. Nadia had thought about it, then nodded. Okay, 2 hospitals, same mission. They announced the project on a Thursday. The press conference was held at a hotel in downtown Seoul. Reporters packed the room, cameras lined the walls. Nadia stood at the podium, hands shaking, and read from a script she'd written the night before. "My name is Dr. Nadia Vale," she began. "3 months ago, I was attacked for doing my job, for saving a life. And in the aftermath, we uncovered a system that preys on the vulnerable, a system that values profit over people, a system that fails the patients it's supposed to protect." She paused, looked at the faces staring back at her. "But instead of walking away, I've decided to build something better. The Vale Drake Institute for Cardiac Justice will open in Seoul and Las Vegas within the next 3 years. It will provide world-class cardiac care to anyone who needs it, regardless of income, immigration status, or ability to pay. It will be funded by a combination of private investment, charitable donations, and a sliding-scale payment model that ensures no one is turned away." The room was silent. "This isn't about revenge," Nadia continued. "It's about making sure what happened to those 32 families never happens again. It's about creating a system that actually works. And it's about proving that healthcare is a right, not a privilege." She stepped back from the podium. The room erupted in questions. Lucian stepped up next to her. "We'll take a few questions." A reporter in the front row stood. "Dr. Vale, critics are saying this is just a PR stunt, that you're using the trial to build your brand. How do you respond?" Nadia took a breath. "I respond by saying that if saving lives is a PR stunt, then I'm guilty as charged." Another reporter. "Mr. Drake, there are rumors that you're using this project to launder money. Any comment?" Lucian's expression didn't change. "Every dollar will be accounted for. Every transaction will be transparent. If anyone wants to audit us, they're welcome to try." The questions kept coming, some fair, some hostile. Nadia answered what she could. Lucian handled the rest. By the time it was over, Nadia felt like she'd run a marathon. In the car afterward, she turned to Lucian. "That was brutal. That was the easy part. What's the hard part?" "Actually doing it." Nadia leaned back and closed her eyes. "Yeah, I figured." The backlash started almost immediately. Op-eds questioned her qualifications. Think pieces accused her of profiteering off tragedy. Serena's remaining supporters, and there were still a few, called her a fraud. Nadia tried to ignore it, tried to focus on the work. But it was hard. One night she was reading a particularly vicious article when Lucian took her laptop and closed it. "Stop," he said. You're torturing yourself. Stop. They're calling me a liar. They're saying I made the whole thing up. They're desperate. Ignore them." "How? How do you just ignore people saying you're a fraud?" Lucian sat down next to her. "Because I know the truth, and so do you, and so do the 47 families we helped. That's all that matters." Nadia wanted to believe him, but the words still stung. "What if they're right?" she said quietly. "What if I am just using this for attention?" "Are you?" "No, but..." "Then stop letting them get in your head." Nadia rubbed her face. "I'm tired, Lucian. I'm so fucking tired." "I know." "Do you? Because you don't seem tired. You don't seem affected by any of this." Lucian was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You want to know the truth?" "Yeah." "I'm terrified." Nadia looked at him. "What?" "Every day I wake up and think about all the ways this could fail. All the people who could get hurt if we screw it up. All the money we could lose, all the trust we could break." He met her eyes. "But I do it anyway, because the alternative is worse." "What's the alternative?" "Doing nothing, letting the system stay broken, letting people like Serena keep winning." Nadia felt something crack open in her chest. "You really believe we can do this?" "Yeah, I do. Even when it feels impossible?" "Especially then." Nadia reached for his hand. "Okay? Okay? Yeah, let's keep going." 6 months later, they broke ground on the Seoul location. It was a small ceremony. Just Nadia, Lucian, Sarah, the architect, and a few members of the construction team. No press, no cameras, just them and a patch of dirt that would become something greater. Nadia stood at the edge of the site, looking at the stakes marking the foundation. It felt surreal, like she was watching someone else's life. "You all right?" Lucian asked. Yeah, just processing. Big moment. Yeah. He put his arm around her shoulders. You did this. We did this. Don't diminish it. This was your vision. I just helped make it real. Nadia leaned into him. I couldn't have done it without you. I know, she laughed. Humble as always. One of my best qualities. They stood there for a while, watching the construction crew set up, watching the sun set over the city, watching the future take shape. Lucian, Nadia said after a while. Yeah? Thank you. For what? For not letting me quit. For believing in this even when I didn't. For, she stopped. For everything. Lucian kissed the top of her head. You don't have to thank me. Yes, I do. All right, then you're welcome. Nadia closed her eyes and let herself feel it. The exhaustion, the hope, the fear, the determination. All of it. Because this was just the beginning. The Vegas location broke ground 3 months later. This time, there was press. Lots of it. The city wanted to make a spectacle out of it. A casino mogul turned philanthropist, a doctor turned activist, a hospital that would serve the forgotten. Nadia gave a speech. Shorter this time. More confident. 2 years ago, I was beaten for doing my job, she said. Today, I'm standing here because I refuse to let that be the end of my story. This hospital, these hospitals, are proof that pain can become power, that tragedy can become transformation, that one person's cruelty can spark a movement. The crowd applauded, cameras flashed. Nadia stepped back and let Lucian take over. He talked about funding, about partnerships, about the donors who'd believed in the vision, about the patients who would benefit. Then he said something that surprised even Nadia. Before we start construction, I want to introduce someone, Lucian said. He gestured to the side of the stage. Grace Back lost her daughter because of a system that failed her. Today she's joining our board of directors, because the people who've been hurt by this system should have a voice in building the new one. Grace walked onto the stage. She was crying. So was Nadia. They embraced, and for the first time in months, Nadia felt like maybe, just maybe, this was going to work. That night, Nadia and Lucian sat on the balcony of their Vegas penthouse, looking out at the lights. Grace cried for 20 minutes after the ceremony, Nadia said. I know. I was there. She kept saying thank you, like we did her a favor. We did. No, she's doing us a favor. She's the one who's going to make sure we don't lose sight of why we're doing this. Lucian nodded. That's why I asked her to join. Nadia looked at him. You're smarter than you look. I know. She laughed. Then the laughter faded. Do you ever think about what would have happened if Serena had just, I don't know, apologized, admitted she was wrong? No. Really? Really. People like Serena don't apologize. They double down. They attack. They destroy. It's who they are. Do you think she regrets it? Any of it? Lucian considered that. Probably not. She probably still thinks she's the victim. That's depressing. That's reality. Nadia finished her drink. Well, fuck her. Lucian raised his glass. I'll drink to that. They clinked glasses, drank, sat in comfortable silence. After a while, Nadia said, I think I'm ready to go back. Back where? To surgery. I haven't operated in months. I miss it. Lucian nodded. Then do it. Just like that? Just like that. You're still a surgeon, Nadia. Building a hospital doesn't change that. Nadia thought about it. About standing in an OR again. About holding a scalpel. About saving lives the way she used to. Yeah, she said. I think I will. Good. They sat there until the stars came out, until the city quieted, until the only sound was their breathing and the distant hum of traffic. And Nadia realized something. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was building. And that made all the difference. The first surgery Nadia performed after the trial was a transplant. A 14-year-old girl named Maya Chen, whose heart had been failing since birth. The family had been on a waiting list for 2 years. They'd maxed out their insurance, sold their house, were 3 weeks from giving up entirely. Then they heard about the Vale Drakey Institute. The sole location wasn't finished yet, wouldn't be for another year. But Nadia had pulled strings to get Maya into a partner hospital with a surgical team she trusted. She scrubbed in at 5 in the morning. The donor heart arrived at 6. By noon, Maya's chest was closed and her new heart was beating strong. Nadia stood in the observation room afterward, still in her scrubs, watching the monitors. Maya's parents were at the bedside, holding their daughter's hands, crying. "You did good," one of the nurses said. Nadia nodded. She felt it in her bones, the rightness of it, the purpose. This was what she was meant to do. Not press conferences, not fundraising galas, this. But she also knew now that the surgery was only part of it. Maya wouldn't have made it to this table without the system they were building, without the partnerships, without the funding, without the mission. It all mattered, every piece. Lucian was waiting when she came out of the locker room. "How'd it go?" he asked. "Perfect. Well, not perfect. There was some bleeding in the second hour, but we managed it." "She's gonna make it?" "Yeah, she's gonna make it." Lucian smiled. It was a real smile, the kind that made him look almost soft. Good. They walked out of the hospital together. The sun was setting. Seoul was washed in orange and gold. "I forgot how much I needed that," Nadia said. "Surgery?" "Yeah, the focus, the clarity. Everything else disappears when I'm in the OR." "I know the feeling." Nadia glanced at him. "You miss it? The old work?" Lucian was quiet for a moment. "Sometimes. But what we're doing now, it's better." "Better how?" "It builds instead of destroys." Nadia thought about that. About the empire Lucian had built in the shadows. About the people he'd hurt, the lives he'd ended. She didn't ask for details, didn't want to know. "You ever regret it?" she asked. "The things you did before?" "Every day." "Then why keep going?" "Because regret without action is just self-pity. And I don't do pity." Nadia almost laughed. "No, you definitely don't." They got in the car. Lucian's driver took them back to the penthouse. Along the way, Nadia's phone buzzed. A message from Maya's mother. "Thank you for giving us our daughter back." She showed it to Lucian. "That's why you do it," he said. "Yeah, that's why. But, The Vegas hospital opened first. 2 years and 4 months after they broke ground, the doors opened to the public. There was a ribbon-cutting ceremony, a tour for donors, speeches from local politicians who'd fought them every step of the way and were now eager to take credit. Nadia stood at the entrance, looking at the building she'd helped create. It was beautiful. 8 stories of glass and steel. Gardens on every floor, art in the hallways, pieces donated by local artists, many of whom had been patients themselves. The lobby was already full, people waiting to be seen. Families who'd heard about the sliding scale payment model. Immigrants who'd been turned away from other hospitals. Sex workers, addicts, the forgotten. Grace Bayak stood next to Nadia, tears streaming down her face. "She would have loved this," Grace said. "Minseo?" "Yeah, she always wanted to be a nurse. She wanted to help people." Grace wiped her eyes. This would have been her dream. Nadia took Grace's hand. "Then we did it for her. We did it for all of them." The first patient through the door was a man in his 50s, homeless, chest pain, no insurance. He looked terrified. Nadia walked up to him. "Hi, I'm Dr. Vale. What's your name?" "Marcus." "Okay, Marcus. Let's get you taken care of." She led him to an exam room, ran tests, found a minor arrhythmia that could have turned major if left untreated, prescribed medication, set him up with a social worker to help with housing. When he left 2 hours later, he was crying. "I thought—" He stopped, started again. "I thought nobody cared." "We care," Nadia said. "That's why we're here." Marcus nodded and walked out. Nadia stood in the hallway, watching him go, and felt something settle in her chest. This was it. This was what all the pain had been for. The Seoul hospital opened 6 months later. The ceremony was bigger, more press, more politicians, more spectacle. Nadia hated every second of it. But when the doors opened and the patients started coming in, when she saw the families who'd been failed by the old system finally getting care, she forgot about the cameras. Daniel Huang showed up on the 3rd day. He'd finished his degree in public health, was working with a nonprofit that helped victims of medical fraud. He looked older, steadier, like he'd found his footing. "Hey," he said when he spotted Nadia. Hey, yourself. This place is incredible. Thanks. We're still working out the kinks, but yeah, it's coming together. Daniel looked around at the nurses, the doctors, the patients. My mom would hate this. Nadia didn't know what to say to that. That's how I know it's right, Daniel continued. Everything she stood for, exploitation, greed, cruelty, this is the opposite of that. So yeah, she'd hate it, and that makes me really fucking proud to be here. Nadia felt her throat tighten. You're a good person, Daniel. I'm trying to be. That's all any of us can do, right? Just try. Yeah, just try. Daniel left an hour later. Nadia watched him go and thought about the different ways people dealt with trauma. Some people ran. Some people broke. Some people rebuilt themselves into something stronger. Daniel was rebuilding. So was she. Maybe that was enough. 3 months after the Seoul opening, Serena's appeal was denied. Nadia found out from a news alert on her phone. She was in surgery when it came through, a valve replacement on a woman in her 60s. She didn't see it until afterward. Lucian called while she was changing. You heard? He asked. Yeah. How do you feel? Nadia thought about it. Relieved, tired, ready to stop thinking about her. Good. Because she's not worth your energy. I know, but it's hard not to. I don't know. Wonder. Wonder what? If she ever thinks about the people she killed. If she ever feels guilty. Lucian was quiet for a moment. Probably not. People like her. They rewrite history in their own heads, make themselves the victim. It's the only way they can live with what they've done. That's sad. That's survival. Nadia finished getting dressed and walked out to the parking lot. It was raining. She stood under the overhang and watched the water come down. Lucian? Yeah? Do you think we're actually making a difference, or are we just, I don't know, putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound? Both. That's not comforting. It's not supposed to be, but it's the truth. We can't fix everything. We can't save everyone. But we can save some people, and that's better than saving no one. Nadia closed her eyes. Yeah, I guess it is. You sound tired. I am. Come home, we'll order food, watch something mindless, forget about the world for a few hours. Okay? Okay. Nadia hung up and got in her car. The drive home was slow. Traffic, rain, the usual chaos. But when she finally walked through the door and saw Lucian waiting, takeout already spread across the counter, a bottle of wine open, the TV queued up to some action movie she'd never heard of, she felt the weight lift a little. You're late, he said. Surgery ran long. Patient okay? Yeah, she's going to be fine. Good. They ate, drank, watched the movie without really watching it. Nadia fell asleep halfway through, her head on Lucian's shoulder. When she woke up, it was 3 a.m. Lucian had covered her with a blanket. The TV was off. He was sitting next to her, reading something on his tablet. Why didn't you wake me? She mumbled. You needed the sleep. So do you. I'll sleep when I'm dead. Nadia sat up, rubbed her eyes. That's a terrible philosophy. It's kept me alive this long. She looked at him, really looked, at the dark circles under his eyes, the tension in his shoulders, the scars on his hands. Lucien, she said quietly, when's the last time you took a day off? Define day off. A day where you don't work, don't take calls, don't solve problems, just exist. He thought about it. I don't remember. That's a problem. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're running on fumes. Lucian set down his tablet. So are you. Yeah, which is why we both need a break. We can't just, yes, we can. We have staff. We have protocols. The hospitals will survive without us for 48 hours. Lucian looked skeptical. Where would we even go? Nadia thought about it, then smiled. Anywhere that's not here. They ended up in Jeju, a small island off the coast of South Korea. No press, no meetings, no cameras. Just them and the ocean and 2 days of not being Dr. Vale and Mr. Drake. They rented a house on the beach, spent the first day doing nothing, sleeping, reading, walking along the shore. It felt strange, almost wrong, like they were betraying some unspoken obligation to always be working. But it also felt necessary. On the second day, they hiked up to a waterfall. The trail was steep. Nadia's legs burned. Lucian didn't complain, but she could tell he was hurting too. When they finally reached the top, the view was worth it. Water cascading down black volcanic rock, mist in the air, the sound of it drowning out everything else. They sat on a flat rock and caught their breath. "This was a good idea," Lucian said. "I have them occasionally." "Occasionally?" Nadia shoved him. He grinned. They sat in silence for a while, just listening to the water, feeling the sun on their faces. Finally, Nadia said, "Do you think we're going to make it?" "Make what?" "This. Us. The hospitals. All of it." Lucian looked at her. "Yeah, I do." "How can you be so sure?" "Because we've already survived the worst of it. Everything else is just maintenance." Nadia laughed. "That's a hell of a way to look at it." "It's the truth." She leaned into him. "What if I mess it up? What if I make a mistake and someone dies and the whole thing falls apart? Then we fix it and we keep going. Just like that?" "Just like that." Nadia closed her eyes. "You make it sound so simple." "It's not simple, but it's not impossible either." They stayed there until the sun started to set. Then they hiked back down, made dinner, sat on the porch, and watched the waves. "Thank you," Nadia said. "For what?" "For this. For not letting me drown." Lucian took her hand. "You were never going to drown. You're too stubborn for that." "Maybe, but it helps knowing you're here. I'm always going to be here." "Promise?" "Promise." But they flew back to Seoul the next day. Reality hit the moment they landed. Messages, emails, problems that needed solving, a donor backing out, a staffing issue at the Vegas location, a patient complaint. But Nadia felt different, steadier, like she'd found her footing again. Over the next year, the hospitals grew. They added a pediatric wing in Vegas, a trauma center in Seoul, programs for addiction recovery, mental health services, community outreach. It wasn't perfect. There were setbacks, budget shortfalls, staffing shortages, patients they couldn't save, but there were also victories, lives saved, families reunited, people who walked through the doors broken and left whole. Nadia operated 4 days a week, taught medical students on Fridays, spent weekends reviewing protocols and visiting patients. Lucian handled the business side, funding, partnerships, expansion. He was good at it, better than Nadia had expected. Turned out the skills he'd learned building a criminal empire translated pretty well to building a legitimate one. They got married on a Tuesday, no ceremony, no guests, just them and a courthouse and a judge who didn't ask questions. "That's it?" Nadia said afterward. "That's it." "Seems anticlimactic." "You want a big wedding?" "Hell no." Lucian smiled. "Then this is perfect." They went out for noodles, argued about whether to add more locations, went home and fell asleep watching TV. It was ordinary, simple, exactly what Nadia needed. 2 years after the hospitals opened, Grace Bake called a board meeting. She'd been pushing for something new, a foundation to support victims of medical fraud, not just financially, but legally, emotionally. A network of resources to help people rebuild after being exploited. The board voted unanimously to approve it. The Bake Foundation launched 6 months later. Grace ran it herself. Nadia sat on the advisory board. Lucian provided funding. The first family they helped was a couple from Busan. Their son had died in an illegal clinic 2 years earlier. They'd been fighting for justice ever since. The foundation connected them with lawyers, therapists, other families who'd been through the same thing. 6 months later, the clinic owners were arrested. Grace called Nadia that night. "We did it," she said. She was crying. "We actually did it." "You did it," Nadia said. "This was your vision." "But you made it possible. We all made it possible. That's the point." Grace was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Minseo would have loved you." Nadia's throat tightened. "I wish I could have met her." "Me too." They talked for a while longer, about the foundation, about the families, about the work still left to do. When they hung up, Nadia sat there for a long time, thinking about all the lives that had been changed, all the people who'd been saved, all the pain that had been turned into purpose. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. There would always be more people who needed help, more systems that needed changing, more fights that needed fighting. But it was something, and something was better than nothing. Bam. 5 years after the trial, Nadia stood on the roof of the Seoul hospital. The city stretched out in every direction, millions of people, millions of stories. She thought about the woman she'd been when she first arrived, young, ambitious, desperate to prove herself. She thought about the night Serena attacked her, the trial, the pain. She thought about everything that had come after. Lucien found her there. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah, just thinking." "About what?" "About how none of this was supposed to happen. I was supposed to be a surgeon. That's it. Save lives. Go home. Repeat. And instead I built hospitals, started a foundation, became a person I didn't know I could be." Lucien leaned against the railing next to her. "Regret it?" "No. But it's strange, looking back and seeing how much changed because one terrible thing happened. That's life. Terrible things happen. You either let them destroy you or you use them to build something better." Nadia looked at him. "You really believe that?" "Yeah, I do." She thought about everything they'd built together, about the patients downstairs getting care, about the families who'd found justice, about the people who'd been saved because someone decided to fight back. "I think I'm starting to believe it too," she said. Lucien put his arm around her. "Good." They stood there until the sun set, until the city lights came on, until the only sound was the hum of traffic and the distant wail of sirens. And Nadia realized something. She wasn't angry anymore. She wasn't scared. She was just present, in this moment, in this life, with this man who'd helped her turn pain into power. "Lucien?" she said. "Yeah?" "Thank you for not letting me quit. You were never going to quit." "Maybe not, but you made it easier." He kissed the top of her head. "That's what partners do." "Yeah, that's what partners do, sir." 10 years after the attack, Nadia gave a speech at a medical conference in New York. The room was packed. Surgeons, researchers, medical students, people who'd heard her story and wanted to know how she did it. She stood at the podium and looked at the faces staring back at her. "I'm going to tell you something most speakers won't," she began. "I don't have all the answers. I make mistakes. I lose patience. I get tired. I doubt myself. I'm not some perfect example of resilience. I'm just a person who decided not to let the worst thing that happened to me be the end of my story." The room was silent. 10 years ago, I was attacked for saving a life. And for a while I thought that was going to define me. That I'd always be the doctor who got beaten, the victim, the cautionary tale. She paused. "But then I realized something. I get to decide what defines me, not the person who hurt me, not the system that failed me, not the people who doubted me. Me." She looked around the room. "So I built hospitals. I started a foundation. I fought for the people who couldn't fight for themselves. And yeah, it was hard. It's still hard. But it's also the most meaningful work I've ever done. Because it's not about me anymore. It's about the thousands of people who now have access to care they wouldn't have had otherwise. It's about the families who finally got justice. It's about proving that one person, one decision, can actually change things." She stepped back from the podium. "You don't have to build a hospital. You don't have to start a foundation. But whatever you do, make it matter. Make it count. Because the world has enough people who see problems and do nothing. It needs more people who see problems and refuse to accept them." The applause started slow, then built. By the time she walked off stage, it was deafening. Lucien was waiting in the wings. "That was good," he said. "You think?" "I know." They walked out of the conference center together. The streets were crowded. New York in spring, chaotic and alive. "You want to grab dinner?" Lucien asked. "Yeah, somewhere quiet." "Quiet in New York?" "I said what I said." He laughed. "All right, I'll find something." They ended up at a small Italian place in the West Village. No cameras, no attention. Just them and plates of pasta and a bottle of wine. "Oh, kiss him." "You ever think about what would have happened if things had gone differently?" Nadia asked. "Different how?" "If Serena had never attacked me. If the trial never happened. If we'd just stayed in our lanes." Lucien thought about it. "Sometimes, but I don't dwell on it." "Why not?" because it didn't happen that way. And I like where we ended up. Nadia smiled. Yeah, me too. They finished dinner, walked back to their hotel, fell asleep tangled together. And in the morning, they went back to work. Because that's what they did. They built, they fought, they refused to quit. And maybe that was the whole point, not to be perfect, not to have all the answers, just to keep going, keep trying, keep believing that the work mattered. Because it did. Every patient saved, every family helped, every system changed. It all mattered. And Nadia, the woman who'd been beaten on a hospital floor, who'd been humiliated on camera, who'd been told she didn't belong, had proven that pain could become power, that one voice could become a movement, that justice, however slow, however imperfect, was still worth fighting for. She'd turned her worst moment into her greatest legacy. And in the end, that was enough.